Hello and welcome to my video on compound interest. This video is specifically for my Year 10 students, so we use a different formula than what some other schools may use, but the concepts are still the same. If you haven't seen my video on simple interest, I highly recommend watching that because I go through some more details as to the different letters in the formula and what the letters mean. I'm going to be skipping over a bit of that detail in this video. The formula that we use for compound interest is A, which talks about our total amount, equals P, our principal, our original amount, times, bracket, 1 plus little I, which is our interest rate as a decimal, over T. I'll come back to T soon. And all of this is to the power of T times N. And N is the number of years that we are applying this interest rate. So that is our formula for compound interest. As I said, I will come back to T very soon. So the letters in this formula are very similar to the simple interest formula. We've got P, our original amount, our principal. We've got I, which is our interest rate, as a decimal. Remember, we have to take our percentage that they give us, divided by 100. We have our N, which is the number of years, and T. Now T is a special one. T is just for compound interest. And T talks about the number of times in the year that the interest is compounded. All right. Now some questions will say compounded 4 times a year, compounded 5 times a year, compounded 6 times a year. If it ever says that, T is that number. It is the number of times it is compounded in a year. But there are some other words that we use. For example, we use the word monthly, compounded monthly. So if it's monthly, well, how many months are in a year? There's 12 months in a year. So if it's compounded monthly, it's compounded once a month for 12 months in the year. So T is equal to 12 because it happens 12 times in the year. Annually is another one that we use. If something is compounded annually, it means it happens once a year. Well, because it happens once a year, T is just equal to 1. And the third one you'll see quite often is quarterly. Now, quarterly can be a little bit confusing. Some people are not sure whether it's 3 or whether it's 4. Quarterly is every 3 months. A quarter of 12 divided by 4, is 3. It is every 3 months. However, because it's every 3 months, it happens 4 times in the year. These 3 are the common values you'll get for T. You'll get monthly, annually, quarterly. You might get half yearly, which would be 2, because it happens once in the middle of the year and then once at the end of the year. So that's 2. But for most of the time, you'll get monthly, annually, and quarterly. Let's try a couple of questions. So in the top right, I've got my formula and I've got monthly, annually, and quarterly in blue with the different T values. T equals 12, T equals 1, and T equals 4. Let's do this question. This question says, Chris borrows $4,000 from the bank. It has an interest rate of 8% and is compounded annually. How much is due after 3 years? Now, if you just watched my simple interest video, you may have picked up that every question in there mentions simple interest. Now, this question doesn't specifically say use compound interest, but it does say that it is compounded annually. Because it says compounded in the question, anywhere in the question, we know to use the compound interest formula. We know this is not simple interest. This is compound interest because it is saying it is compounded annually. Let's go through our letters. We have A, which we don't know yet. The question wants us to find the value for A. So we don't know that yet. We have P, our principal. We do know P. We have P, our principal. I, our interest rate, n, the number of years, and t, a special number for compound interest, the amount of times it is compounded in the year. Our P for this is $4,000. So I'm going to write $4,000. Our I value, it says 8%. So I'm going to write 8%. But just like simple interest, we have to divide this by 100 to get 0.08. We want our little I, to be a decimal, not a percentage. For N, the question says how much is due after 3 years? So N is equal to 3. And finally, our T value. It says it is compounded annually. Compounded annually. If you look in the top right of our screen, A, if it's annually, T equals 1. Annually means it's happening once a year, so T equals 1. Let's write out our formula for A. A equals P times 1 plus I over T to the power of T times N. So A equals, our P is 4,000 times bracket 1 plus our I is 0.08 divided by T, which is 1, to the power of T times N, which is 1 times 3. Now I'm going to simplify this down a little bit. I'm going to do a bit of mental maths here. 4,000 I'll keep as is. 1 plus, now 0.08 divided by 1. Anything over 1 is just itself. So if there's a 1 on the bottom, we don't need it at all. So I'm going to write 0.08 to the power of 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. So I'll write 3. Once I've got that, I will then put it into my calculator. So looking at my calculator, I do 4,000 times 1 plus 0.08 to the power of 3, and it is $5,038, and I'm going to round this to 85 cents. $5,038.85. That is our answer for this question. How much is due after 3 years? That is the answer. This next question says, Eva puts $5,000 into her bank account. It gets a quarterly compound interest rate of 3%. What is the account worth after 7 years? So my first thing is, I'm going to write out my letters. A equals, P equals, I equals, N equals, and T equals. If you don't know what A equals yet, we're going to find that. P, our principal, is $5,000. I is 3%. If you can see the percent sign, that's it. We're going to divide that by 100 to get 0.03. Our N value, we look at the question. It says, what is the account worth after 7 years? So our N value is 7. And T, we need to read the question and try to find these words. In the second sentence, it says it gets a quarterly compound interest rate. Quarterly. So looking in the top right, quarterly, T equals 4. So T equals 4 if it is quarterly. I like to think of it as a pizza. If you cut a pizza into quarters, how many pieces have you got? You have 4 pieces. Once we've done that, I'm going to write out my formula. P times 1 plus I over T to the power of T times N. So A equals, my P value is 5,000 times 1 plus I is 0.03 divided by 4 to the power of T times N. So 4 times 7. A equals Now, if you have a scientific calculator, which you should, it's a calculator that allows you to do a fraction like that. If you look on my calculator, your calculator should allow you to write a fraction like that. If your calculator allows you to do this, then that makes this easier. I will show you afterwards what to do if you do not have a calculator that allows you to do a fraction like that. I'm going to type this entire thing into my calculator. So looking at the calculator, we have 5,000 times bracket 1 plus, I'm doing my fraction button, 0.03 over 4, close the bracket, to the power of 4 times 7 equals, and this gives me a value of 6,163 I'll round that up to 56 cents. $6,163.56. That is the answer to this question. I quickly want to show you how to do this for people who don't have calculators that allow fractions like that. And it's kind of simple. You can just write 5,000 times bracket 1 plus 0.03 divided by 4 to the power of 4 times 7. If you put this into your calculator, you will get the same answer. I can do it in my calculator as well to show you. $5,000 times bracket 1 plus 0.03 divided by 4 to the power of 4 times 7. You will also get $6,163.56. You'll get the same number. You just need to remember to write out or to put it into your calculator like this instead of like that. All right, last question. Billy borrows $25,000 from the bank to start a business. The interest rate is 6% and is compounded monthly. What is the total amount due after 10 years? There's another question here that says, if Billy saves $5,000 a year, could he afford to pay the loan off after 10 years? Once again, let us write out our numbers. We don't know what our A is. P, I, N, and T. Looking through our question, our P is $25,000. Our I is 6%, which divided by 100 equals 0.06. Our N is 10 years. And our T, this is compounded monthly, so T is equal to 12. Let's put this formula out. A equals P times 1 plus I over T to the power of T times N. So A equals 25,000 times 1 plus I, which is 0.06 divided by 12 to the power of 12 times 10. Once again, you can either write that into your calculator or you can do 25,000 times 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12 to the power of 12 times 10. Both of them will give you the same answer. Let's put it into my calculator. 25,000 times 1 plus 0.06 over 12 to the power of, close bracket, to the power of 12 times 10 is equal to 45,484.92. $45,484.92. So that is the answer to this first part. The second part of the question. The second part of the question says that if Billy saves $5,000 a year, could he pay the loan off after 10 years? This one is fairly simple. If he saves $5,000 per year, how much has he got after 10 years? So I'm going to write, after 10 years, he has 5,000 times 10, which is $50,000. This is more than 45, I'll write this in green, this is more than $45,484.92, which means he can pay it off. So that second question is a yes. If he saves $5,000 a year, he can afford to pay the loan off after 10 years. That is compound interest. It is a bit more complicated than simple interest, but after practicing it, getting to know the formula, getting to know what each of the letters means, and practicing reading questions and getting information from questions, it isn't that bad. Hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for watching.